Does the Bible actually say that? As we come towards the end of this series, we probably only have one more episode in this series. One of the things that we hear from so-called believers is that the Bible tells you that you as a Christian shouldn't smoke. And let me let you know my position on smoking. I've never been a smoker. Just never appealed to me. I prefer people didn't. But if you search the Bible front to back and you look for the verse that says, "Thou shalt not smoke," you ain't gonna find it. In fact, the Bible doesn't even mention tobacco in any way, but we know that tobacco was around. We know that it's there since the beginning of the earth. But the Bible is completely silent on smoking or using tobacco products. And actually, smoking tobacco is relatively new. It's only maybe a couple hundred years old. And tobacco was used more as an offering to the gods than it was for smoking in its original use. But with that being said, smoking as a believer, are you allowed to smoke? Yes. Yeah. The Bible doesn't say that you won't go to heaven if you smoke cigarettes. But is it wise? No. Almost 500,000 people die every year with smoking related illnesses and secondhand smoke just in America. That's just in America. To put that into perspective, during the entire Vietnam War, a little over 58,000 American soldiers lost their lives and people were in an outrage. But for some reason, we can lose almost 500,000 people every year to smoking and nothing's really said. So as a Christian, can you smoke? Yeah, you can. Is it wise? No, not very. For a couple of reasons. Number one, it is one of the very few products in the world that if you use it as directed, it'll kill you. Let me say that again. It's one of the very few products sold legally in the world that if you use it as directed, it will kill you. Not only that, it's an addiction. Scripture we're going to use here in a little while will show you exactly what I mean. And it's a financial burden. You can spend literally on the cheap end, you can spend literally $100, $200 a month. And that's the lowball figure on a habit of tobacco products. And so can you be a Christian and smoke? Yep, sure can. But it's not very wise. And one of the things you got to be careful about is the addiction. Ask yourself this question. I talked to a person that was a smoker and they tried and they quit and they tried and they quit and they just struggled with it their whole entire life. And, they said one of their low points was it was a snowstorm or some kind of storm and trees were down and all this kind of stuff. And so they couldn't drive the car and they literally walked in the snow to get to the store to buy some cigarettes. He said he knew then that it had mastered him. And just think about your own life. If you come down to what you owe God, if you have tithing money and you don't have any cigarettes, what would you do? What would you do? If you have that addiction, you're gonna go get you some cigs. Just be real and be honest. And that tells you that it has mastered you. Now listen, we're gonna talk about that as we look at 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12 through 14. I'm reading from the New International Version. And this scripture is about addictions, not only smoking, but sexual type things that we shouldn't be involved in, and gluttony. We love to talk about smoking, but what about gluttony? What about eating too much? What about anything that damages your temple, your body for Christ? So let's look at 1 Corinthians 6, 12 through 14. I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. You say, food for the stomach, and the stomach for food, and God will destroy them both. The body, however, is not meant for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. By his power, God raised the Lord from the dead, and he will raise us also. This kind of touches on actually three different addictions, three different ways to sin against this temple, the body. And first, it talks about, how this person is saying, I can do anything. Well, technically, there are things you can do that you may be allowed to do, but ain't wise to do. Smoking is one of them. Then it goes on to talk about, this person saying, I can eat anything I want. Meat for the belly and belly for meat, right? And what that is saying right there is, basically, it's just as unwise as smoking is if you have diabetes, or if you have high blood pressure and you keep on eating that ham, or you keep on eating them sweets, or whatever the case might be. You are bound, you are broken and bound by that thing. And then it goes on to describe, that sexual things, sexual sins. You can be addicted to the touch and the feel of sexual relationships outside the marriage. And I use this scripture for a reason, because it's really covering more than just smoking. It's talking about anything that damages your body. Smoking undoubtedly damages your body. Will there be smokers in heaven? Absolutely, yes, they will. Will you lose your salvation if that was possible because you have a smoking addiction? Absolutely not. First of all, you can't lose your salvation. Second of all, smoking is something that the Bible has not expressly condemned, but it is not wise, because it can be your master, and no one can serve two masters. So in that note, no, the Bible doesn't say thou shalt not smoke, but it does tells us anything that gets in the way of you fully serving God is your master. That's what it's saying there. I will not be mastered by anything. You shouldn't be mastered by food. You shouldn't be mastered by sexual things. You shouldn't be mastered by smoking. You shouldn't be mastered by risky behavior. God is saying to you, don't let anything rule you, because he's your ruler.